I'm your host today for our video with a focus on traveling while still eating whole food plant-based, eating your healthy diet. And we're in for a tasty adventure because we're going to pop into the kitchens of two experts in this area. One is Vikki Dietrich. She's a Chat and Chew volunteer. She's one of our Zoom volunteers. And Ruth Morley, you may remember her. She is the backpacking expert who travels whole food plant-based. We did an interview of her, and she's also been on a podcast. And our aim today is, as we think about the upcoming fall season and holiday season, we know how our time gets very restricted, and we just can't get it all done and then prepare a really nice meal at the end of the day or lunches. And so we've got ideas for you when you're staying home or when you're traveling or when you're going to somebody else's house where they may not be cooking whole food plant-based. So tune in because we've got some ideas. First, we have Vikki. Vikki's going to share with us some products, and boy, she can find good products that will help with the ease of traveling, especially. Like she likes to do road trips. So she's ready in her car with all the things that she needs pretty much to eat most of the way on her trip. She's also going to give us a bunch of specific products that we'll list the resources or the links to in the Show More section below the video. And she's also really good at finding excellent recipe pages on the website, on the web. So she's in charge of our Chat and Cook Recipe Club, and there will also be a link to that club if you want to join it for some new recipe clubs. Now, throughout the video, we talk a lot about beans and rice and potatoes, you know, the starches. And the reason we do that is, I don't know about you, but when I travel, I find that I can get nice salads, but not so much when it comes to beans or just a nice, good potato, those kinds of things. So we're going to focus on how you can handle that. For example, what if you were invited to someone's home or to a restaurant and you knew that they weren't going to have anything but salad that you could eat? Well, you could make one of these quick meals to kind of satisfy your appetite before you go. And then when you get there, you can just rave over the wonderful salad that you get offered. So let's see what Vikki's rounded up for us.
Okay, so what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you, I like road trips and I'm going to show you how I travel, but the things that I'm going to show you for the most part, most of them you can do whether you travel by car, bus, train, or even airplane. Almost everything I'm going to show you today, you can take on an airplane. So one of the first things that I do when I travel is I have a little hot pot that I bought. And what this is it's portable, it's small, it travels well. The cord's inside, and in this little pot, I can boil 2 cups of water in about 2 minutes. And when I say boil, I mean it is boiling. It is hot. The other thing I always try to take is a 2-cup Pyrex or anchor hocking measuring cup. These are really good in a microwave. So if it's something that I need to cook in the microwave, not just boiling water, I can use this. Can also boil water in the microwave. If you need more water than what the other one's going to hold, you can boil water in this. So the things that I use the boiling water for, one of the things I do for breakfast is typically oatmeal. And you can buy these. This is Bob's Red Mill. I usually buy them by the case, especially when I'm traveling. All you have to do is add boiling water to the line. It tells you inside how far to add it. And then it's ready to eat. 5 minutes. You cover it up, 5 minutes, it's ready to eat. I will tell you on these, if you're an oatmeal person and you like oatmeal for breakfast and you're used to eating oatmeal for breakfast, these are pretty small. Unless I'm eating something else, I usually eat 2 of them as if this is what I'm eating for breakfast. So plan on 2 just in case. The other things that are just add boiling water, Dr. McDougall has his McDougall cups. I think we've had these in other videos before. He has low sodium and regular. This one's noodles. It has a little rice pack or a little flavor packet inside with the rice. You put it all in there, pour water to the line, let it sit for 5 minutes. It's ready to eat. They're both very good. This is low sodium. He does have a low sodium line if you are concerned about sodium. So either which one. Very similar to that, Lotus Foods makes a rice ramen. These are very good. Same, it's a little bit bigger than the McDougall ones, but it's the same thing. You pour your water in there, let it sit, stir it up real good, and you have rice ramen noodles. And it's a good little small, you're gonna want something else with it, but it's a good little meal. Now, something else that we've just recently discovered is a company called Lentifuls, I'm sorry, and they are instant lentils. These are very good, and they look small, but they're filling. So if you were to have this either by itself or with some of the rice I'm going to show you, it's going to be a good meal. They have several different flavors. They have a low sodium line and a regular sodium line. They're both good. I bought a case of both before I went on a trip before, and they're both good. Now let's go to some grains. Well, here's one more. I have lentils. I just recently discovered this pouch of lentils. They're already cooked. All you have to do is heat them up. If you eat food room temperature, you don't even have to heat it up. But it's lentils, water, and salt. And I got these at Walmart, and they're very good. Now, I don't know how many of you shop at Aldi, but if you know Aldi, you know sometimes they have something today, and day after tomorrow, they're not going to have it, because that's how Aldi is. I bought these a couple of weeks ago, 90-second Faro. They didn't have them today. They have a whole 90-second line. This is their Simply Nature products, and they have a 90-second line. Most of them have products in it, ingredients that we don't eat, primarily oil. But I found this a couple of weeks ago or a week or so ago, Faro, and they have no oil, and they're very good. Now I have several options for rice. One of them is minute rice. And this you can cook on the stovetop if you have a stovetop, or you can cook it in the microwave. It is brown rice, red rice, wild rice, and quinoa. And it's little pouches of rice. This is one of the things I typically cook in here. You're going to have your water and your rice, and you're going to stir it up, and then you're going to cook it in the microwave. Instructions on the back, 10 minutes, and you're ready to eat. Now, this would be good with the lentils. If you want to eat lentils, rice and lentils, you can have this cooking while your lentils are soaking, and then it'll all be ready. There's two different kinds of rice that you can get in a pouch. My favorite rice always is Lundberg brown jasmine rice. I usually cook my own, but when traveling, how nice of them to cook it for me and put it in a nice little pouch. All I have to do is open it up and cook it. Recently, I discovered Lotus Foods does the same thing. Jasmine brown rice. It's also very good. And as much as I like Lundberg, this one is a little less expensive most places, but both of them are good, easy, travel nice, and cook easy. Lundberg also has a little rice in a bowl, long grain brown rice, heat and eat. Just like it says, you tear this open a little bit and heat it in the microwave. Personally, I think it needs a little water. They're a little dry like they are. So I open it up. When I open it up, I put a little water in there, probably 2 or 3 tablespoons. I don't really measure it. I just put some water in there, close it back up, put it in the microwave, stir it up, and it's good to go. So these are some of the things that I do. I'm sure you guys could come up with some more ideas. If you do have some ideas, some things, put them down in the comments below, because we would like to see what you do, and maybe we can add them to another show. But that's what I do to travel, and I stay on plan and stay whole food plant-based when I travel.
Thanks, Vicki. That's a lot of good information on how we can still eat flavorful food, but do it with ease when we're traveling or just relaxing at home. So next we have Ruth Morley. Now she's the backpacking expert when it comes to traveling whole food plant-based. Backpacking's not on your bucket list? Well, that's okay, because she's got information that will really help. For example, she's going to go into how you dehydrate. And if you're dehydration curious, you want to know more about that, she'll have some good suggestions, as well as other things too. Now, I'm not a dehydrator yet. So I like to purchase foods that already are dehydrated, like Vicki showed us, the Lentifuls, but also I like to make up my own recipes. And that's one thing we learned about doing from Dr. Delaney, a cardiologist. And Ruth has experimented with this some too. These are called Instapot meals in a jar. And I'm going to show you how I do it real quick, and then we'll move on to hear what Ruth says about it. This is what my finished meals look like. The prepping has been done for me because I purchased the ingredients that I needed. And these are filled with beans, and then there's usually a flavor packet that goes with them. And on the top are labels that tell me what recipe is in that jar. And they all come from this book, The Instant Pot Meals in a Jar. That's number 1 in this graphic here with the photographs. And you can see how the Instant Pot and the jars go together. Well, they really do. And here's how it starts. In fact, what's so nice about it is these recipes are really flavorful. And I don't know about you, but I like food that's very seasoned and not spicy next evident all the time, but still has a lot of flavor. So first I start by making the flavor packet. That's number 2. And I do that with dehydrated vegetables and things like onions and garlic and herbs and spices. And I put those in a number 3, a flavor packet. You see number 3 down there where it's got the little stasher? That's the name of those little silicone bags that you can get in place of plastic bags. And I label the bag so I'm all set when it comes time to cook. And then in the jar, I usually put the starch, and most of the time it's beans. And I do it a little bit different than the cookbook because the cookbook says you can put the seasonings on top, but I don't like that because I like to wash my beans first, so rinse them first. And so I put them in the jar, and the flavor packet goes underneath the cabinet, and it looks nice on the shelf. And then 4 is after it's all done. So I've taken those beans, I've taken the stasher packet, and I put them in my Instapot. And I added some vegetable broth. You could use water too, but I like vegetable broth. And then I set the timer for how long the cookbook says, and voila, they come out beautifully. And they're so rich in flavor. And then number 4, after it's all finished, I put them in jars again. And this time I put a couple of jars, at least, sometimes there's 3, in the refrigerator for us to eat if it's a soup like red lentil Ethiopian is one of our favorites. The curried lentil is over the top good. And then I also put them in small jars. Those are the pint size, and label them. And those, after I cool them really good and they're cold in the refrigerator and they aren't filled past the fill line, these wide mouth jars do great in the freezer for me. So that's how it works. And those are really helpful to me as I get things done ahead of time, and then I can cook a meal really quick with the help of the Instant Pot jar meals. And as I said, Ruth has been experimenting with this book too, so she'll give you some of those ideas. But she's got lots of other things to say, so let's hand it back over to Vikki, and she can get us started.
Okay, now that we've seen how Vikki travels and how you can travel if you choose to, let me introduce you to Ruth Morley. Now, Ruth Morley travels a little differently than I do. She backpacks all over the country, trails, remote trails, and she has to carry all of her food with her. So I'm going to let her explain to you how she stays on plan and carries all of her foods.
Hi, Vikki. Thank you so much for including me in this. It's really fun to share this information with others to encourage them to get out and travel, be it by foot or car or airplane. Before I start on what I do here to prepare for trips, I just want to share that I've tried a recipe in the Instant Pot Meals in a Jar cookbook, and I really, really enjoyed it. I love the concept of preparing the food in advance and then just cooking it in the Instant Pot. I made the smoky chipotle quinoa, black beans, and corn, and that was superb. It won't be my last time. So yes, I love to backpack. I've been doing it for about 17 years, which means when you backpack as opposed to hiking, you're carrying your tent and sleep gear and everything else on your back. I don't carry enough, say I'm out for 2 weeks, I don't carry enough food for the full 2 weeks. I can't, it would be too heavy. And I can't carry fresh food, it would spoil. So I learned about dehydrating. And dehydrating is different than freeze drying in that it has the dehydrators have a fan in the back and heat that goes, it all goes through, circulates through the dehydrator and removes the water from the food, and the food shrinks down and is much lighter weight. Freeze dryers freeze the food and remove the water, and it's even more lightweight, but it doesn't shrink down. So I bought 2 dehydrators to get, I started with one, and this is called my Excalibur. It's a 9-tray dehydrator. Like I said, the fan is in the back, has a removable door, which I really like. And on the trays, you have mesh trays that you can set larger pieces of food on. If you're going to do something that is liquidy, you buy separately these Paraflex silicone pads. So I have enough for all 9 trays, and I love this thing. I swear by it, and I know other friends who have it as well. But then once I got going on this big time, I wanted to be able to speak knowledgeably about another one that's very popular. And this is by Nesco, and it's called the Garden Master. And this one is very different. It's a little more difficult to access because you have to remove each tray, and it has a hole in the middle going all the way to the bottom that the air circulates through. On this one, the air is in the top and it goes down through. Again, this one has mesh trays that you buy separately, not included. I accidentally got a mesh tray too small, so if you look into this, measure your trays carefully. And whoops, it also has these removable trays that you can put liquidy things on. Again, when I did not measure carefully, and I accidentally bought some that were too small. And you can use it, but it's a waste of time and space. It's better off do it right the first time. So of the 2, the Excalibur is my favorite. I feel it dries more evenly and more accessible, but I'm very happy to have both because sometimes I'm doing a whole lot of food all at once. So I follow Dr. Esselstyn's Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease Plan, and his is the most selective, you might say, of all of them, and I stick to it as very best as I can. I'd say 99% of the time on the trail, as well as at home. I mean, my heart's going with me. So how did I learn how to do it? I discovered these books by the backpacking chef Glenn McAllister, and they are priceless. Recipes for Adventure, this information's in the show notes, and Recipes for Adventure too. And he has a fantastic website that tells you here's how you prepare beans, how long you dehydrate them, how you package them for all the foods. It's really useful. So how do I get started? Well, I can use most of my recipes, and so I can make stews and chilies, combined meals, and I do that for my dinners. For my breakfasts and lunches, I tend to do individual food items. For example, here's chopped up cherry tomatoes or mushrooms. And for lunches, I'll combine these things with a sauce. So how do you do it? Well, you start with your raw food and you cut the pieces in uniform pieces. Like fruit will be little 1/4 inch cubes. Vegetables can be a little bigger. You don't have to memorize this. It's all in here. And you try to get them all uniform so that when they're drying, they will dry about the same time. And so you will take a tray, and if it's a solid food, then you would spread it out on the tray, on the mesh tray, not the other one. And what I have are some chickpeas. These are my favorite legume. And I will just spread them out. Now I'm probably going to drop this right in front of y'all, but I just spread it out so that it's not overlapping, but it's in a single layer so that, yes, the air comes up from the bottom, but you want it to be surrounded by air. And I would normally put 1 or 2 more cans on here, and then I just put it in here. I have learned through trial and error that most of the dehydrating The best dehydrating is the middle trays, just because of the air movement. So when it is drying, after a few hours, I'll switch the trays. And the top one goes in the middle, and these move around, and I'll turn the trays too, because the back might dehydrate faster than the other. The fan can only do so much. Back to the raw foods. If I'm making a stew or a soup and the sauce is thin, often I will make it thicker so it'll spread nicely on this tray. I will take some of the solid, like the potatoes and carrots and things that are in the stew, and blend them and add them back to it. Or you can always add more potatoes too, which is a great way to thicken a sauce. I also dehydrate hummus. This is some homemade oil-free hummus. And the way I do this is just spreading it in a thin layer onto this, and I'll cover the whole sheet. I make it about 1/4 of an inch thick, and then I dehydrate it, and I try to get all the edges down, make everything really smooth and thin, and I will dehydrate it. The book and the website tell you exactly how long and at what temperature. It's between 125 and 145 Fahrenheit. And midway, again, I'll switch its location, I turn it around, I put it back in, and once this gets more pliable and solid, I will peel it off of this sheet and put it on one of the mesh sheets. And it is allowed to eat as you do this. It's encouraged. Sometimes I have to literally take my mouth shut to stop eating. Anyway, then I will flip it over onto a mesh sheet so it can dry more thoroughly, and then just crumble it up after it's all done. Sometimes sauces are a solid sheet, so I'll put them in the food processor to mash them up a bit, to pulverize them. I prefer using these silicone sheets. You can use the parchment paper, but it's hard to manipulate, and if you're scraping things off, it can tear. So I save parchment paper more for use in the oven. You cannot dehydrate. You're going to like this list: dairy, excess oil, coconut, milk, fatty and uncooked meats, and avocados. Okay, I don't care. I used to. I was eating meat and all those things when I started dehydrating, till I saw the light of Esselstyn. For packaging, now it's all done. I take it out. It took about 10 hours. It'll go between 6 to 10 hours. I'll do it overnight, but usually I like to do it in the day so I can switch the trays. Now it's time to let it cool for a couple hours, make sure there's no moisture left, and I need to package it. For myself, I like, for meals for the trail, I like pint size Ziplocs that you can get mostly online. I look at all that writing on it. I use them over and over and over, and on the trail I'll actually mail them home, so that when I have a rest day every 4 or 5 days, so that I can wash them and reuse them and be a responsible citizen of this world. So I put and in these wonderful books, he tells you the proportions, how much food to take. I eat like a lumberjack on the trail, so I take about 1.5 cups of dried food in here. Most people would take a cup. Or you can, and then I close it up. And this is an example of a lunch. It's chili, rice, greens, always greens, Esselstyn, and a balsamic package, Marconi balsamic, the individual packets I get from Amazon, and a little extra rice and mushrooms. And this is one of my meals, and I seal it up and label it with the date, put it in the deep freeze. Now, these don't last forever. They're not totally airtight, but they're pretty darn good. If I want to be more airtight, I could have put the food into a vacuum seal bag. And I have a vacuum sealer, a Food Saver. And if I had food in this, it would stay much longer. I do put things in the deep freeze just to give a little more security to lasting. And then I would take the bag and put it here, shut the drawer, and turn it on, and it would seal it up and suck all the air out. And it's the air, the oxygen, that makes food spoil. Or if I choose to do individual items like these tomatoes or these mushrooms, then I will put a lid on it. And with my vacuum sealer, it has this attachment. Then I can turn it on, and whoops, in about 15-20 seconds, it vacuum seals it. Sometimes I put a little oxygen absorber in there. And if there's no obstruction on the rim, it's sealed, and it's good for a long time. It's really good. I have a whole pantry downstairs, and that's how I make most of my lunches. I put together a variety of delicious vegetables, maybe with a bean and my dried hummus and a packet of this. And that's got all the bases covered for lunch, and that's easy to assemble. Now, those chickpeas that I was dehydrating, this is them. They come out very crunchy and nice, and they are the base of a snack bag that I make. This snack bag has a variety of vegetables in it, and sometimes I add crumbled rice cakes or a bit of just raw oats. In it, I love to make my snack mix: peppers, jicama, which I just love. It's hard to find in the store sometimes. Mushrooms that I have soaked in balsamic vinegar, and that's what activates the nitric oxide for our blood vein health. So I've already got the vinegar in there. I don't need a packet, because I also add greens very often. I don't have those handy. And then my quartered cherry tomatoes and the chickpeas. Some people like to add seasonings to chickpeas, and that's fine. I just like the natural flavor. You can also dehydrate lentils, since we're talking about legumes, and black beans. Now look how light those are. If I had cooked my own black beans from scratch and then dehydrated them instead of using the canned, they would not burst open so much, and they would be prettier. I don't care about pretty on the trail. I mean, I do, but I brush my hair. But these rehydrate quickly, and it's just so easy to open a can, rinse it well, and pour it out on the tray. So that's my snack mix. That is my afternoon snack almost always. And so once I've got my meals done, I make day packs. Beforehand, I love to plan, obviously, and it makes trips go better. I write out my itinerary. I've been gone for as long as like 2 months on the Appalachian Trail at a time, and I knew where I would be spending my days off, my quote 0 days, meaning no 0 miles hike that day. It's a rest day, 2 nights in town and 1 day of resting. So I give my husband the itinerary, and I line up all my hostels and hotels and post office general deliveries. And I say, on this day in Breckenridge, Colorado, I need 4 days worth of food for the next 4 days. And he'll mail it to my hostel or hotel or post office. And then 4 or 5 days later, I have another day off, and he sends me my supply. I'm never carrying more than 5 days worth, which is enough. It's about 1.5 pounds each. But let's see what's in here. My breakfast is always the same thing. I'm in love with it. It's what I have at home. You see lots of writing on it. I've used this many years. It's a base of oats, sweet potatoes, chickpeas, cauliflower, zucchini, banana. Just delicious. Flaxseed, cinnamon, and powdered vanilla. And then I have a packet of Marconi in there. And I just use water. I just use water at home too. And I'll show how I prepare my food later. And then my lunch is what I showed you earlier. My dinner is red lentil curry with rice and greens. And of course, there's a packet of vinegar. And so delicious. I just eat like a queen on the trail, as opposed to, the candy and sugary cereals that a lot of people eat. And then I have 3 snacks that I just don't get tired of. I have a cookie recipe, and I hope that you'll investigate my Facebook page later on. That's where I have files of my recipes. And these are oats. They start with oats, bananas, cinnamon, and vanilla. And that's it. But then I add, these are reddish because I chop up, and also raisins. But Esselstyn doesn't want us eating the dried fruit because it's a big hit of fructose all at once. So I put raisins in my husband's, but in mine, I put finely minced cooked beets. So good, so good. And I add a little bit of beet juice to get the flavor in there. And I always have greens in so the beets are considered greens. I also make another kind with smashed sweet potatoes and chopped kale cooked, all of that. I do cook almost everything before, lightly steam it and then maybe blanch it before I dehydrate it. Just throw that in there. Most things. But I always put a bit of vinegar, balsamic vinegar in there to, again, work with the greens for heart health. And then I buy chestnuts. Esselstyn says this is the only nut that he allows. It's actually a fruit, and I'm sure he knows that. But I buy them roasted and cooked, on Amazon. But they would rot, they would spoil on the trail because they're soft. So I quarter them and make them smaller and dehydrate them, and they come out really crispy, and I feel like I'm eating nuts. It's wonderful. I don't allow it at home to myself, and I try to avoid my cookies because I'll overdo it. I love it. I tell myself, this is for the trail. Don't eat it now, Ruth. Once I'm on the trail, how do I prepare my food? The way that most people do it, and I did for the first 9/10 of the Appalachian Trail, I use a little canister of fuel and a folding stove. It goes real tiny, and a pot. And I would put the dry food in there and fill it up with water and then some. And I would put on the lid and bring it to a boil for a minute or two. I can't remember exactly how long. I no longer use this system. And then I let it set for 10 or 15 minutes, and then it's ready to eat. But I got tired of the added weight. We are really very conscious of grams and ounces when you're carrying it up mountains. So I started doing something called cold soaking, which I really like, and I use it for road travel anytime. I just put my food in this plastic container with a lid. I bought it from lightsmith.com. You could also use a small, any other plastic container with a lid, but I like this. It's smooth on the bottom, easy to get the food out. Put the food in, fill it up with a lot more water. It doesn't matter if it's more of a soup than a stew, and put it in your backpack. For instance, for breakfast, I will put at night when I'm setting up my tent and I've already had my dinner, I'll prepare breakfast and go secure it with the rest of my food overnight in the forest or wherever I am. And then in the morning it's ready. I eat my breakfast, I put lunch in. I add its water, I put it in my backpack. And at lunch it's ready. And at lunch, after I empty this, I put in my dinner and the water and put it in my backpack. And it's so easy to clean. I just put water in, shake it around, drink it, done. Because you can't shake it and pour anything out. It's like, welcome wild animals, come to my campsite. You can't do that. And when you are cleaning one of these, it's like, ooh, scrape, 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 and it's much harder to clean. And hikers love their gear. I have a long handled spoon that gets in there. This is a joy. My snacks I eat dry. Now, almost done here, but I want to show you how I carry my food. So I usually start out, like I said, my husband will mail the food to me. So I have 4 days worth of food. I'll send this home along with the other used bag, and it all goes in this bag, which is animal and bear, critter and bear resistant. Now, it doesn't mean, and it ties securely, and you tie it to a tree. Doesn't have to be up high, just down low. And they can't get into this. It's called an sack, UR, which is for bear. But they could mash the heck out of your food. So if there is a strong chance, if I'm in bear country, like I was a couple summers ago in the Rockies, well, and on the Appalachian Trail even more, I carry what's called a bear canister, and it has a lid that screws on. The bears haven't figured out how to open screws, and it will hold about 4 days worth of food. It adds more weight, but I do want to know that my food is safe. So that's one option I use. And other people who have good throwing arms throw a rope up over a branch of a tree and they pull their bag of food up and tie the rope to the tree trunk. I can't even throw a ball over a door. So that one doesn't work for me. So that's what works. I never have to leave the Esselstyn plan. When I'm in town, I've already scoped it out. I know where to get fresh food. I stay someplace with a microwave and refrigerator accessibility, and I eat fresh food as best I can because that's always healthier. I mean, with this, you do lose a few nutrients, but it really tops eating Cheerios, Honey Nut Cheerios for dinner. I think we have a few more nutrients in this food. So that's how I pull it off. It's a joy. It's a lot of work. But I just double batch my food, my stews and things when I make it. I just fit it in. It's a hobby. It's downstairs. It's not up here in the kitchen. It's downstairs in the basement by the laundry area, like a second kitchen. And it's worked for me since 2017. So that's it.
Oh my
Any
God.
questions? Yeah.
Vikki, didn't you get a lot of ideas, even though we don't backpack?
I did. I love it. And you know, one thing I was thinking about while she was talking, when she's backpacking, she's burning up a whole lot more calories than I'm doing when I'm driving my car across country and going places. So you have to actually have more food than I would probably carry because you're burning up calories every single day, more than normal. So,
and I have to have more than all the other hikers because a lot of them bring extra olive oil to swig for the calories. All they care about is just shove it in. I would say 90% of the hikers don't understand that really they should be putting premium fuel in their bodies. If you're fully loaded with a big backpack, you can be spending 500 calories an hour. So, and I mean, even in a normal day at home, I eat probably 3 times the amount of food of many people just because it's low caloric density, you know?
Exactly. Good job.
Thank you.
Many of our viewers are going to take some keys from you for travel, whether they're backpacking, flying, driving, whatever. So thank you.
Wonderful. I hope it's helpful. I really do. It makes you feel good about yourself that you're really dedicated to living a rich life as long as you can.
Absolutely.
And how old are you?
I'm 71. Thank you. Proud of it. And I recently read a wonderful book called Outlive, and he talks about training for the centenarian decathlon. The decathletes are very well versed in 10 different sports, and I really want to reach age 100 or more, but with a quality of life. And so he says we need, with our exercise and our eating, we need to be training for that time now and just really get in the exercise and get in the nutrients. And that's what I'm doing.
Well, I know I'm going to want to move more after watching you.
Good.
And we'll also have the link to her interview Vikki did with her about all of her journeys, her health journey, and then all of those amazing trips by foot all over the world. And be sure and take a look at that because it's just amazing.
It's fun.
And you know, you are getting ready to do another big hike. So tell us about it.
Okay. 2 years ago, I decided to hike the Florida National Scenic Trail, and it's 1,100 miles from the Big Cypress Swamp down in the south in the Everglades, and it goes up through the center of the state, slightly east, and wraps around Orlando, and then it finishes across the bay from Pensacola. But I am what's called a lasher, a long section hiker, a blank section hiker. I don't tend to be a through hiker from this end to this end. I like to come home to my nice husband, and it just isn't fun after a month for me. So I'm doing it over a series of 4 Januaries. I now have 2 Januaries done. I'm halfway done. I'm in the second half. I've reached the Suwannee River area, which is supposedly beautiful. However, because of the recent hurricane, it's just devastated. And so I doubt that I will be hiking there this year. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump further south, go back to Big Cypress Swamp where I started going north, and I'm going to go walk 200 miles, most probably down to Key West. It's my ultimate goal to hike from Key West to the Canadian border. I've already done the 2,200-mile Appalachian Trail. I will have finished the Florida Trail, including that little added bit at the end. So I have just a couple segments, only about 900 miles to fill in, and then I will be able to say Key West to Canada, check. Yeah, and then next summer, my husband's joining me in France. We're going to do a 100-mile Tour de Mont Blanc. It goes around in France, Switzerland, and Italy, around Mont Blanc, the tallest mountain in Western Europe. But we will not be carrying tents and things this time. We're going to stay in the really sweet hostels with the bunk rooms and eating at tables, picnic tables with the whole gang. You'll hear like 4 or 5 languages at one time, but we are taking dehydrated food because you're not going to get what you want up in the mountains or anywhere. Yeah, so we'll carry our food.
Yeah.
So those are my big plans. Very exciting.
Oh my gosh, is that ever? I mean, to be able to say Key West to Canada. Ooh, and
I know. I'm very
Appalachian Trail, that big part of it. So
yeah.
Those 2 little pieces. Now you're going to start, what is it, the first week in January? And
that's my plan. Yeah, that's typical.
Follow you. How do they do that?
Yes, please join me if you are interested in more. I have a Facebook page called Heart Healthy Hiking, which I post on, I'd say 5 out of 7 days about eating this way and hiking and just life in general, the way I love to live life. And for longer narratives, and I can go on and on, as you might have noticed, it's at the Trek, trek.co/co. Oh, I'm sorry, I already did that. /author/Ruth-Morley. And that's where I have a lot of pictures and really go into depth about what I'm doing. I only post there when I'm out doing a long hike, but I will be doing that in January.
Okay, well, so we'll post that in the show notes. So that
Thank you.
Follow you, and then we'll also have your Facebook page because that's where you have files of recipes too. So
yes,
as well. Well, thank you so much. And Ruth, how about you? Have you got anything you want to say in parting?
I think that was it, and I thank you for giving me the time to share all of this. Just remember, it all starts with a single step. I mean, it took a lot of time before I decided I could do the Appalachian Trail, and I thought I'll just do part of it. And inch by inch, you get things accomplished. It's just like habits. It's continuity and daring to start. Don't let this overwhelm you. I do take things to extreme. I chose Esselstyn's plan, which is the most intense. But you just reap the benefits so much if you are consistent and start with that first step.
Well, I know your name is Ruth Morley, but I think we're going to nickname you Ruth Mazing.
Oh, that's sweet. I do have a trail name. It used to be Chocoholic, but I gave up dark chocolate because of the saturated fats and sugar. It's Ruthless. I didn't choose it.
I like Ruth Mazing better.
Ruth Mazing, you are free to use that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you both for helping us take a look at another way to travel and prepare for it so that you can meet your goals for your health.